Welcome to the Vine Resources podcast show. Welcome to another edition of the Vine Resources podcast show. I'm absolutely delighted to have the founder of Pendo, Eric Boduch. Have I said that right, Eric?
That was something we could have prepped. Eric Boduch, yeah, one of four founders at Pendo. So
You're a really interesting company, Pendo. You're one of the top 50 startups as voted by LinkedIn very recently. You've got over 150 employees in 4 countries. Why don't you share a little bit of insight with our listeners into your organization and what you do?
Sure, absolutely. So Pendo was born from product managers. We all have some experience. All the founders have experience in the product management space, and we always struggled with capturing information about how our users use our software and then acting on it. So what we built in Pendo is a platform for product experience. We help product teams deliver software that users love. More specifically, when you think about the features we provide, we help product teams understand product usage, collect feedback, measure NPS, and then guide them through things like onboarding users, optimizing trial conversions, announcing new features in app. And the really important thing is we do this all without requiring engineering resources. So that was always the struggle when we did this, at other companies. It was hard to steal engineers to instrument your product. So Pendo was built without this concept of needing engineering instrumentation. So snippet of code you install, we start capturing everything. Really powerful way to, give. It's a really powerful way to give information to product managers.
And we talked about, Eric, where your offices are, which is a global organization. But where are your customers generally based?
Customers are definitely global too. We have customers in Australia. We have a lot of customers in Europe. And then obviously places like Silicon Valley, but also the heartland. We started in Raleigh, North Carolina. We're still headquartered there. We always intend to be. We have a lot of customers in places like Raleigh or where I live, Pittsburgh.
And just before we jump into the questions and find out a little bit more about your story, I'd love to know where our listeners can get hold of one of your fabulous T-shirts.
If they tweet at me, eBoduch is my Twitter handle. I'm sure I can hook them up with something. Maybe we'll run a contest for T-shirts.
We might do that, and we might perhaps if they say that they've listened to you on iTunes, maybe we can come up with something.
I think we can do something.
So look, can we jump into the questions now? I'm going to just ask. I would like to share with our listeners what a typical day in the business looks like for you as the leader or the founder.
Sure. So one of the founders and what I did, up until most recently was run marketing. So a lot of things have changed in the last few days or last few weeks as I transitioned into the chief evangelist role for Pendo. So it used to be when I was running marketing, my job, most recently, because the company's gotten to a sizable, number of employees and revenue goals, spent in a lot of meetings, a lot of coordination. It takes a lot of work to make our events look as amazing as they do. Spent a lot of time looking at metrics, doing analysis, making sure we're allocating resources properly towards growth. Today, it's changed a little bit now that I'm chief evangelist. Spend a lot more time with customers, talking about how they're using Pendo, listening to them, hearing what they have to say about areas that they could think Pendo could, grow. Share a lot of best practices, share a lot of information about how other customers are using Pendo. I do a lot of events, a lot of speaking now. We're launching a podcast in mid-January geared towards product management and the product management community. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm going to host that. So it'll be a new experience for me. And then I do speaking at other types of events, whether it be customer success events talking about onboarding or, local product camps.
Okay, sounds like it's non-stop for you as well. Can you name a person who's perhaps has had tremendous impact on you as a leader? Perhaps it's even someone who's been a mentor to you, Eric.
Absolutely. First person that comes to mind was an old college professor of mine, Jack Roseman. I went to school at Carnegie Mellon. He was a business professor, taught entrepreneurship there. So he really got the entrepreneurship bug in me, helped me think about starting companies, what it meant. Very people-focused person too. So, early on instilled in me the concept of working with great people, inspiring great people to do great things. He's been an amazing influence on my life. Great guy.
And what do you think? You just touched on there the people part of the running a business. How do you keep employees engaged in your business, and what do you do from the top?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our core values, a lot of our core values are revolve around our people and our approach to uh, keeping our people engaged. One of our core values is about transparency. We do everything from sharing board meeting slides to town halls every 2 weeks. We share a ton of information about how the company is performing in the marketplace with our employees. We're really open and transparent about just about everything. Second, I think in another core value is freedom and responsibility. We give people a lot of responsibility and we give them a lot of freedom to solve big, hairy problems for us. We're growing extremely quickly, 4x growth last year. So one of the challenges is how do you scale that? And the only really way to scale that is find great people, give them the authority and the responsibility to drive different aspects of the business.
Fantastic. And what do you think? You've got obviously a lot of things going on in the industry at the moment, a lot of change and challenge. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing leaders today?
Well, biggest challenge. I think the biggest challenge facing leaders really just comes down to people, right? How do you find the right people that share your vision? How do you get them all working together towards one common goal? It's really difficult to keep people focused on common goals, right? Especially as the company grows. How do you inspire people? Early on at Pendo, what was great is we had some really great people that were pushing each other to do more. And that really drove us to try to grow as quickly as possible, to try to really change the industry, to bring great tools to the product management community.
Fantastic. And what do you think is the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
Best piece of business advice. I think, to try things, to experiment. A lot of people are worried about, failure. And I don't think you try to do things to fail, but I think you try to do things to find the best ways to succeed. So experiment a lot, whether it be, how you approach sales or whether it be how you're approaching go-to-market. Experiment, learn from it, capture lots of data. So we have one of our core values too is show me the data. So if you're experimenting and you're learning things from that, share that data throughout the organization. Learn from your experiments. Learn from both things that went well and things that didn't go well.
Fantastic. And you talked about obviously the company's growing very, very fast. So how do you help a new employee understand the culture of the company at Pendo?
Definitely a big challenge, especially as we're growing quickly. To make sure that we integrate people in with our culture. We do a lot of work with employee onboarding. So right off the bat, we try to get them involved in the company. We have a culture committee that does everything from cool, pink T-shirts that employees get to just providing them opportunities to meet and interact with people that have been at the company longer, whether it's little coffee breaks, whether it's larger events. We try to do a lot to get our people both inside and outside of work working together. Let's see, what else? There's a huge emphasis. I've talked about some of our core values. We have them on the wall. So I think that helps instill the right culture too.
Fantastic. Well, what is the one mistake you witness leaders making more frequently than others?
I come from an engineering background, even though I'm on the marketing, evangelism, kind of business development, product side since then. And what I found a lot of people don't do is pay attention to data. Really try to experiment, capture that data, share that data, analyze that data, try to learn things. Marketing as a discipline is a great example of that. It's really shifted over the past few years from something that was like, oh, we're not really sure what aspects of our marketing are doing the best, to a lot of data being generated through the marketing department and analyzed and optimized so that you can say, do a better job with things like lead generation.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you see your industry changing over the next few years? And how will that impact your ability to attract and retain the right talent?
Oh, tons of things changing in our industry when you think of it as, how to build better software, from things like design thinking to just huge amounts of data on how products are being used. Embracing that and trying to be a leader in our industry, trying to help product managers build better products, build products their customers love, is a direction we push heavily on. And because we do that, because we're really focused on raising the art of product management, we tend to attract people that are really passionate about products, so they fit in really well with Pendo.
Fantastic. As a last question, if you were giving yourself, your 20-year-old self advice, what would you go back and give yourself advice?
20s are a great time to take risks, to do things. I would say don't worry about taking risks. Don't worry about doing things that might be outside of your comfort zone. Give them a shot. Try them. Work at it. Embrace things like pink. there's lots of great things you can do in your 20s. You don't necessarily have as many constraints as you might have as you continue to get older. Take some risks. Experiment. Try new things.
Absolutely, I love that, and I completely agree with that. Eric, what's the best way for people? Well, we talked before, by the way. You've got expansion plans into Europe as well, maybe perhaps London and other parts. But what's the best way for people to reach out to you as a business and also your good self?
Sure. As a business, if they're interested in seeing what Pendo can do, we're happy to show them a demo of the product. They can just go to the website pendo.io, pendo.io. As far as reaching out to me, the easiest way is, they can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm one of the few Eric Boduchs, definitely the only Eric Boduch at Pendo, the only one that lives in Pittsburgh. So there's lots of ways to find me there. It's Boduch is the last name. So that's great ways. And they can follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is my first initial last name, so eBoduch. So happy to interact with them through any of the social channels. And, they can connect with us directly through the website too.
And hopefully they'll see you. Some of our listeners might see you at the next event that you'll be talking at, or on your podcast.
Yeah, I try to do a lot of the product management events, the product camps that are throughout the States, and I'm going to be doing more internationally. I'll be at Mobile World Congress. I'll be at Mind the Products event. I'll be at Product Collectives event in Ireland and London, respectively. So pretty excited. And I think I'll be in Zurich next year for the Product Management Festival. So yeah, lots of cool stuff. Definitely going to be spending a lot more time in Europe over the next 12 months.
Eric, thank you so much for sharing your story, and good luck for 2017.
Thank you. Appreciate it.